Alright, so today we are going to look at the basics of the circulatory system. I want to start off by going over why this half is called the left half of the heart, when it looks like, from the picture, it should be the right half. So anytime you see a diagram of the heart, this side will always be called the left, this one will always be called the right. And the way I try to remember that is, I think of the heart being inside me. So there I am, I'm so happy, and this is my giant shoulders. And if the heart was inside of me right there, that would actually be the left side of my body. So here's the left side of body. And this half would actually be the right side of my body. Even though in the picture it's not, if you pretended that was you and your heart, it will help you remember it. So right side of body. Alright, now we are going to move on to the basic regions of the heart. So there are 4 chambers in the heart, and we're going to look at them first by talking about the right half of the heart versus the left half of the heart. And I am going to color code these drawings. So I'm going to use blue for blood that needs oxygen. So here I'm going to draw the right half of the heart. You might be thinking this doesn't look anything like the drawing I did a minute ago, but bear with me and it should all work out. And the red is going to be for blood that already has oxygen. So you can kind of already see that there's a big difference between the right half of the heart, and don't forget, right half, we're talking about that, right? So the right half of the heart is blue, and that means that all of that blood needs oxygen. So I'm going to write that over here. The right half, it needs oxygen. A lot of times I won't write out oxygen, but I'll just write this, O2, and that is oxygen. And the left half already has oxygen, so I'm just going to write has oxygen. Okay. So now we are going to look at the top of the heart versus the bottom of the heart. So I'm going to draw the same picture I just drew. You can see the top I'm drawing as 2 circles, and the bottom I'm drawing kind of as like, I don't know, 2 funny looking triangles. Okay, so the top half, these are the atria. So this is your left atrium, and this is your right atrium. And I'm going to write that out, atrium. A-T-R-I-U-M. And here we have the right atrium. And atrium in Greek means waiting room. So I'm going to write that too. Waiting room. And when I learned that, it helped me understand this so much better, because this top half of your heart, really, its job is to wait to be pumped somewhere. So this part of your heart isn't really pumping out to your blood, to your lungs, to your body. It's just waiting to be pumped. So if we are thinking about this logically, and we're thinking about the blue half of the heart, we're talking about blood that needs oxygen. So if you need oxygen, where do we get our oxygen from? What body part comes to mind? I'm hoping lungs comes to mind. So if this is waiting for something, it's waiting to go to the lungs because it needs oxygen. So I'm going to write that. Waiting to be pumped to lungs. Not pumped to lungs, but waiting to be pumped to lungs. And the other side has oxygen-rich blood. So if there's a bunch of blood with oxygen in it, where does it need to go? Everywhere in your body. So this half of your heart, in this atrium, it's waiting, the blood is, waiting to be pumped to all of your cells all over all your body. So I'm just going to write waiting to be pumped to body. Okay, so if we're waiting up here on the top half of the heart, on the bottom, we're pumping. So the bottom, these are the ventricles. So we have the left ventricle, and the right ventricle. And if you keep thinking about this logically, and we're going with our color coding scheme here, the right ventricle has oxygen, poor blood, and basically it comes from the atria waiting to get pumped to lungs, and then this is what's going to pump it to the lungs. So waiting, okay, finally it can happen. So right here I'm going to write pumped to lungs. Pumped to lungs. And if you can connect the dots, you might be thinking that this ventricle is really going to be pumping the blood that was just hanging out in this atria, and it's going to be pumping it to the body. So this is the pump to body. Okay, so pumping to lungs versus pumping to body. One half of your heart actually needs a much thicker muscle around its ventricle to pump. So what makes more sense? Pumping from your heart, so think about where your heart is in your body, to your lungs, which are fairly close to each other, or pumping from your heart to every other place in your whole body. Which one takes more muscle? I'm going to take a different color. Brown is what I got. And the answer is this half needs a much thicker muscle. And that muscle is called myocardium. Now, there is muscle on this side. I'm probably not going to do a good job drawing this, but the thing you want to notice is like the thickness between the ventricle wall and that muscle, basically how thick the muscle is like so much, it's 4 times thicker on this half of your heart because it has a much bigger job to do. It needs to squeeze all of that blood, pump it to every single cell, you know, down to your toes and up to your head, to your fingers, and if their blood didn't get there, then your tissue would die, and that's never a good thing. So, we're going to move down to the bottom of the page. I'm going to slide my page up just a little bit, and we're going to talk about the difference between a vein and an artery. Now, veins, if you remember from the homework video, you're awful. Veins carry blood towards the heart. Carry blood towards heart. And arteries carry blood away from heart. And the little homework video gave you this way to remember it. Arteries, away. They both begin with the letter A, so if that helps you remember it, go with that. Okay, so veins carrying blood towards the heart. We're talking about atria here. So I'm drawing 2 big atria, so the top part of your heart. And why do we need blood going towards the heart? Well, for 2 reasons. One reason is because you used up all your oxygen, and that happens all the time. So there's going to be blood coming from your lower half of your body, so you can imagine that being like your legs, hips, waist, that sort of thing. And then blood that was used up from the top half of your body. And they're both really going into this atria, this side of the heart. And there it's going to be wait to be pumped to the lungs. So I'm going to just write needs lungs oxygen. So it's waiting to be pumped to the lungs. And on the other side of the heart, blood would go towards your heart here because it just came from the lungs. So good thing we have lungs to give us lots of oxygen. And in heart diagrams, I never really realized this because you'll always see like these 2 things sticking out of both of the sides of the heart, but really this one carries all the way into this atrium, so all of that blood from your lungs is getting poured into this side. So this needs to go to body. or needs to be pumped to the body. So that's the situation where veins are carrying blood towards your heart. Now I want to switch over to arteries, and we're going to talk about when does blood need to be carried away from your heart, and we are talking about the ventricles here. So I'm going to draw both of our ventricles. Lovely drawing. And if it's going away from your heart, it's going away for one or two reasons. If it's leaving here, where is it going? I'm hoping you can answer that in your head right now. It's going to your lungs. So here are my beautiful lungs. One lung, two lungs. So it's going from your ventricle, so don't forget. This isn't a picture of your atria. The atria would be up here. So there's the atria hiding up there. And if it is being pumped away from the oxygen-rich side, it is going to the rest of your body. So it's going to leave your atria, your ventricle. And this is where you see in those pictures that big arch with the three little things coming off the top. And really, that's just a bunch of branches to get all of the oxygen-rich blood throughout your entire body. I also want to say something about color coding. One, this is the question. Is blood really blue? And the answer is no, definitely not. You might think, hey, if I look through my skin, it looks like my blood is blue, but that's actually just the connective tissue in your veins and your arteries making it look blue. Blood is always red. Sometimes it's less red or more red, depending on how much oxygen it has, but really this color coding we're using is to help us keep it straight in our mind, not because it really has different colors. And the other thing is, I know when I was in school, I used to keep track of the difference between a vein and an artery by the color. So I thought, oh, blue means veins, red means arteries. And yes, most of the time that's true, but if you notice, let's look at the picture here for veins. Is it all blue in this picture? No. And how about for arteries? Is it all red? No. So the main rule breaker, in science there's always rule breakers, is the lungs, and the lungs bringing oxygen-rich blood towards the heart. And we can get into that more later. So right now I just want to summarize all that we've learned. So let's go back up to the top of the page, and we're going to remember why we're calling this the left side, because you're thinking about the heart as if it were actually physically in your body. Alright, right half versus left half. The right half needs oxygen. The left half has oxygen. If you can keep that in your head, you should be able to walk yourself through this entire process, because really, if it needs oxygen, where's it going? Lungs. And if it has oxygen, where's it going? Everywhere else. And now let's move to top versus bottom. So top, not doing the pumping, but it's waiting to be pumped. Waiting to be pumped to lungs, waiting to be pumped to your bodies. The bottom half is doing the pumping. This half is pumping out to your lungs, while this ventricle is pumping out to your body, which takes more work, definitely pumping to your body. It's a lot bigger, further away than your lungs. Last but not least, we have the difference between veins and arteries. So you really just need to remember that veins are carrying blood towards your heart. Arteries are carrying blood away from your heart. And if you think through this whole process, you should be able to piece that together for yourself. Thank you.